Are you a people pleaser? Do you put the needs of others before your own? What would it look like to say yes to yourself first? This is part of a 14-part video series that explores how trauma, stress, and anxiety play a pivotal role in health recovery. Hi there, I'm Dr. Chanu Dasari. I'm a surgeon who specializes in reversing gut microbiome dysfunction and autoimmune inflammation. My technique for reversing symptoms in as little as 6 weeks has helped thousands of patients over the years and is called the Mind-Gut Immunity Method. And if you'd like to learn more, visit mgiclinic.com and request a discovery call. Now, many of you know my personal story. In my early 20s, I struggled with autoimmune disease and digestive dysfunction. And I was able to fix inflammation naturally using the same methods that I now use in my patients. But even after all these years, after my recovery from autoimmune disease and digestive dysfunction, I've still struggled with the anxiety and frustration. Why was I so sick? Why did I ignore the early signs? Why did I let stress take over? And more importantly, why did I deprioritize myself in these situations? These lingering questions were important ones for me to answer because they were at the heart of why I became sick in the first place. After working with thousands of patients over the years, I can tell you that the themes of trauma, stress, and anxiety keep popping up. So in the Mind-Gut Immunity Clinic, we've enlisted the help of a personal development coach to help create awareness for my clients to understand how anxiety, stress, and trauma play a pivotal role in autoimmune inflammation and digestive dysfunction. It's a mini personal development workshop, if you will, within the Mind-Gut Immunity Clinic that creates awareness around illness. Our clients work one-on-one with our coach, Virginia, who you'll see here today, to integrate new awareness and thought processes into recovery. I can tell you from personally working with Virginia over the years that this is a much needed addition to the Mind-Gut Immunity Academy. And from the positive feedback I've received from my patients, I know that this is something that can help others in their healing journeys. In this video, we'll be examining how people-pleasing behavior can affect health outcomes, and specifically look at how saying yes to yourself and affirming your own needs goes a long way to developing healthy outcomes. Why do you think so many of our clients are people pleasers?
I think that we're taught to be polite growing up. I think we're taught to do as we're told and not to think out of the box and be disruptive. And so a lot of people just function on just not wanting to be uncomfortable, and they people please because standing up for themselves feels unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think unsafe is a good word because I was, in the trauma literature, there's this idea that whenever you express a negative emotion, right, you will somehow lose love, right? You'll lose like the acceptance or love of other people. So you tend to not want to express these negative emotions. But and like, trauma, whether it's something like big major event or even like small events, like some of the most traumatic things are the way people were raised, right? Like
totally.
As you grow up, when you're behaving great and you're doing all these great things, you're showered with love and attention, right? But sometimes when you're expressing a negative emotion like anger or sadness or whatever the case may be, some of that positive reinforcing emotions aren't there from your surroundings. So you're almost taught, like from a very young age, like, hey, it's better to be people pleasing. It's better to act in a way that society finds like tolerable, And I think what's happened in 100% of the clients that I work with is they don't even know what their needs are. They're afraid to prioritize their needs above everybody else's, right? So these tend to be folks that will do everything for everyone else before themselves, right? Or
these are basic needs you're talking about. Like, we're not talking about
oh, we're talking like going to the bathroom.
Yes.
We're talking about eating,
drinking water,
eating. Like for me, when I was dealing with all of my autoimmune condition and digestive dysfunction years ago, I remember like there would be periods of time where I would just like try not to eat, or I was so busy like doing, studying or like in the operating room or whatnot, I wouldn't even have time to like pee or like take a rest or even sometimes sleep. And these are like basic human needs, right? We're talking like eating, sleeping, resting, right? Basic human needs that are being not met
because of the belief that you had. I have to be busy, I have to work, I have to make money, I'm not worthy if I'm not this.
Exactly.
So then that takes priority. And if I don't interrupt that, you don't interrupt that, all your choices are based on that underlying belief that's running your show unconsciously.
Mm-hmm. And that underlying belief is what creates these sort of people-pleasing behaviors. And, there's actually some famous authors that have looked at this. You and I have both read The Myth of Normal.
I love that book.
Love that book by Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
But he talks about it. He says nearly 100% of people that deal with autoimmune inflammation have this problem. And it's been the same experience in my own clinic, right? Like when we work with clients, that's one of the first things.
Top.
Oh yeah.
That is that and money. Those are the two top things. They're either obsessed type A making money or people pleasing and getting their needs unmet.
Yeah. And it's just very interesting to think about that.
It is.
That it's that pervasive. And it can be even small things, right? It doesn't have to be so in your face. It can be the smallest thing that people are not, we just had a client recently. He's and this is somebody you work with, right? And so he's somebody that has like this very successful business in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
But he signed up for our program from a hospital bed. Okay, so he's calling me from a hospital bed and he's telling me like, "Hey doc, I think I have a problem." I was like, "Yeah, you have a problem. You're in a hospital.
That's a problem.
You have two surgeons staring at you right now talking about, doing an operation for your condition, right?"
Yeah.
And then, when we work with him, it was very interesting. During our discovery call, it was obvious that his problem was severe, right? I wasn't even sure if he was the right kind of client fit. But, when I was looking through his records and things, it became very obvious that the most basic sort of questions weren't even being asked. Like, are you doing things are you prioritizing your health the way it should be? The answer was no. Do you make time to meal prep? Answer was no. Do you have time to rest? Answer is no. Do you have time to sleep? Answer is no. These are like...
How does that even the answer? You don't have time to eat and go to the bathroom. Do people even stop and think about how not sensible that is?
Yeah.
For your own basic...
It's not even people-pleasing. It's way beyond...
That's beyond people-pleasing.
It's beyond people-pleasing, right? It's like...
That's neglect.
That's self-neglect.
That is
That's
self-neglect.
Active self-neglect.
Yes.
And it's just, I don't...
But it comes down to, like you said, love and secure attachment. Mm-hmm. When we're infants, and Gabor Mate talks about this, child development, if you didn't gain that secure attachment, you pick up this baggage or tools to get it. Because as humans, that's a basic need, love and attachment. Mm-hmm. And if we don't revisit that to get past our childhood trauma, even if it's big or small, we're functioning from that place and we don't even know it.
And I would even argue, even people that are securely attached, even kids that are securely attached can still exhibit these types of behaviors, right?
Yeah.
They're like, "Hey, look at me. We did this like great thing," or they'll come home with like some great art project they did, or they'll actively do things to try to impress their parents who they deeply love.
Right.
Right. And their parents, when they're impressed, they're going to give them a round of applause, give them full of accolades and cheer,
Mm-hmm.
And when that kid is like hangry, hangry, mad because he didn't eat, right? Then the parents are all like, all of a sudden, like, most parents are a little frustrated.
Right? Yeah, because they're tired and hungry too and haven't gone to the bathroom.
Yeah, because they haven't dealt with their own
stuff,
right? So
exactly.
So now they're looking at a kid,
right?
And I did the same thing though, right? When I'm a new parent, that, and I did the same thing when my baby was crying. She's like, I was thinking to myself, man, I want to ignore her crying. That was a thought that actually like rolled through my head.
Yeah.
And that's actually when we started working together. That's when I realized, holy crap, like I have my own trauma to deal with. Like, why am I actively trying to ignore a baby crying? Like that's not normal at all.
Yeah.
But parents probably do it all the time in different contexts. That kid grows older and they throw a tantrum or a hissy fit or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And maybe they think, oh, maybe I'll ignore this.
And maybe it wasn't big trauma. Maybe it wasn't I had a bad childhood. It was literally like when I cried, it made my mom uncomfortable, so I better stop.
Yeah.
So you heard your child cry and you're like, uh-oh, because that little you inside of you remembers that, oh, people get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So now I'm uncomfortable. And we never revisit that. And then here we are, not expressing ourselves, saying yes when we don't mean it. And we're not functioning from our authentic place. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be vulnerable. Let it happen.
I want to talk about this making people uncomfortable, because this is a very important topic, right?
It is.
We were just talking
about that.
It's not your job to make people comfortable around you.
Right.
But we've made it our job.
Yes.
Because everyone believes like that's why we are people pleasers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We believe that by making people comfortable, by avoiding conflict, right? That's the most important thing, as opposed to, some of these other unmet needs.
Totally.
And so,
because conflict's uncomfortable, we don't want to be uncomfortable. So that's been put in the bad judgment bucket.
Well, I'm gonna add one to that.
Yeah.
The person who is uncomfortable.
Yep.
By either your comments or your negative emotion or whatever the case may be, I wonder what kind of trauma they're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Right? Because it's probably the reason that they're uncomfortable is they haven't gone through their own stuff. They haven't figured out why they're triggered. They haven't figured out why they're having an emotional response to your state of mind or your comments, right? And so it's a very interesting process, right? Because this is such a pervasive problem, I feel. And people-pleasing behavior is one of those things that I don't know. It's a very it's an
insidious. It's literally one of the biggest epidemics I feel like there is, and no one's addressing it.
Yeah, no.
Because we're literally functioning from that place. You could say something to me, it doesn't offend me, but the person sitting next to me is offended. Mm-hmm. So we are always holding the stuff, not the other person. Mm-hmm. So we have to look inward instead of, oh, he's rude, it must be him. Well, I wasn't offended, but you were. So you said the same exact thing.
And in our program, when we're working with people with digestive dysfunction, autoimmune disease, inflammation, we actually have a checklist, right? And on that checklist, there's an entire multi-pronged question about literally all the types of people-pleasing behaviors there are. And people just hit check mark. It's not like even one or two items on that list. It's usually like more than half that list. Yeah. And it's everyone.
Everyone. The first question sometimes takes the longest because there's so many basic unmet needs that aren't happening because we're pleasing other people instead of ourselves.
Yeah, we're busy doing all this stuff for everyone else, all the stuff that we don't care about, that doesn't actually matter.
When there's a belief, I'm selfish if I take care of myself. Right. Or if I take care of me first, that means I'm not a good person. That's why that narrative thing is so big, because if you have that narrative, you're never taking care of yourself. Because I don't want to be selfish.
And it's just so important to change those views.
Totally.
I really like that you call yourself an awareness coach, because, when I first started working with you for my own sort of traumas and stress and anxiety, I was thinking, awareness is probably the answer. Awareness is always the answer.
It's always the answer.
But you don't know what awareness looks like all the time, right? When you're not aware of what you're not aware of.
Right.
Right. So, but that there needs to be some kind of personal development and growth that needs to happen. So people know that something needs to change.
Right.
But they just don't know what. They also don't know what they need to be aware of. And I love that you put together a program for specifically people dealing with autoimmune dysfunction, digestive dysfunction, inflammation, specifically around the context of trauma, stress, anxiety, to try to draw out what are these people-pleasing behaviors, what are these limiting beliefs, and what are these narratives that need to change.
And the most amazing part of this program that I love for all of us is mind-gut immunity, and understanding that your mind does affect your gut, your awareness affects your activities and your choices, and it's all linked together, along with the healthy habits, the right food, and all of those things. But if you're not aware of your own thinking that's affecting your gut, then you're missing part of the puzzle. So that's...
Even one stressful event, so one, like even a micro stress
during
the day, like let's say someone triggered you in line, or let's say you forgot to eat a certain food, right?
Right.
Or because you were stressed because you were trying to getting your kids to school, whatever the case may be, right? There's always a dozen reasons why.
Yeah.
Even these micro stresses it's been shown to cause inflammation. It's been shown to create gut microbiome dysfunction.
Right.
And so there's actual scientific data behind all of this. Going in depth on topics such as these allow us to achieve uncommon healing. We already do a good job at solving gut microbiome dysfunction at the root of inflammation, and we make strides in trying to unwind the perspectives and behaviors that create illness in the first place. And that's how we achieve a lasting recovery. Now remember, we've got 13 other videos on similar topics, so if you found this conversation useful, be sure to check out the other videos. Also share these videos with someone you know who's struggling with a health condition and doesn't know where to start. Sometimes just starting the discussion with them can help them change their perspective on illness. Lastly, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, I'm Dr. Chanu Dasari with the Mind Gut Immunity Clinic, and I'll see you next time.